be playing StarCraft. Had to drag him out of there.
That's such a cool nerd origin story too. Get in trouble with the law for all the right reasons. But we are here now on Romanticide for our first map of the night, guys. Get hype. Up here in the top left, in the blue, this is Legacy's Probe.
Can't wait to see what he's got, but of course, standing in his way, the Terran player who picked this map. Is he going to play super standard and try to macro up? This is Seither. Representing Mind Freak, of course, and really the strongest Terran for many years. I kind of hope our little factoid before the game saying that he started playing in 2015 means that was his first pro tournament recorded. And he was actually playing for years before that, because it's unfair if someone could get that good that fast. Because I'm telling you, by early 2016, maybe even late 2015, we thought Seither was a Korean Smurf. We're like, there's no way this kid no one's ever met is this good this quick. And yeah, then we all met him at LANs, and we're like, no, he's a real bona fide kid from Geelong, down near Melbourne in Australia, and he just happens to be incredibly skilled at this game.
Yeah, and we were burnt a few times in the early days of competitive play in Oceania and Southeast Asia. We did have some Smurf issues where people from other regions would come in and just try and smash our tournaments. And so I remember when he came into the scene and I was like, is this guy another one of these Smurfs? Because he's really good, but no one really knows who he is. But no, he has been quite a formidable opponent for many in this region for such a long time now. And he's still killing it, man.
Indeed. Rocking the beanie today. Probe there with the lovely tousled kind of hair. Looking focused as ever. I've actually been really enjoying Probe's camera presence recently with these camera setups. We've got lots of him pointing at the camera, laughing at it, shaking his head either in excitement or disappointment. Seither, of course, has been gritting a little bit as well, especially in ANZ Champs. I noticed a lot of him pulling out cheeky build orders and grinning and looking like he'd really gotten away with murder after sneaking some of those wins versus a lot of the Protoss players. So I think the players are getting more and more comfortable. The fact we get to see their faces more is a massive win for me. I think it's always been one of the big things that we don't get enough of in esports.
Yeah. And I mean, this is looking pretty chill so far, at least from Seither's camp, opening up the mines. Oh, okay. We're going to grab an armory in here early on. So a little bit of change up from what we've seen him do in some of the recent games.
Yeah, and this is super committed, right?
Yeah.
I guess he kind of needs to just keep going, right? Like second medevac, more Widow Mines. I think with this commitment, your command center is going to be so delayed. You kind of need to go for round 2 and maybe even round 3. Like you might even rally Widow Mines across the map, and then your medevac, when it pops out, just kind of picks them back up and goes right back in. And there's no Phoenix play for Probe, so he's not going to have that like supreme control over the dead space. He's doing a obviously, you know, gate robo kind of blink expand here. He's going to have some stalkers out, not a huge amount, and he's building shield batteries, which do not help against Widow Mines.
Yeah, that's gonna be a bit of a time for Probe to try and deal with, and here it comes. Let's see how much damage he can do, whether he splits the mines between the couple of bases. I mean, when you've got 4, it doesn't matter if you're right underneath that medevac, something's gonna burrow, and he actually has no idea that this is already dropped off a mine on the high ground. Ooh, good start.
Not bad at all. Yeah, straight up 9 probes killed is really good. A little bit of miss micro on the medevac, but does get it out of there. And the Observer, though, did start building very early, so they should not get to fire a second time. The thing is, he's still got 2 in the back, and there's another one already on the way across the map coming towards that natural probe here. The danger is just getting stuck in a constant cycle of losing mining time and losing probes. Even if it's only a few at a time, a second Widow Mine drop comes in. If he pulls all of his stalkers away, the other one will poke into that main base.
This is so hard to deal with too, because it can be so persistent. I mean, he loses more and more workers, gets a bunch of these, a couple of stalkers hurt here as well. And that's a bit of a dent in your early game worker production. He's already going for a 3rd base, so yeah, soon he'll be able to get probe reduction happening 3 at a time, but that was a rough start and clean up there.
Probe just had this like half grin on his face that whole time. He's like, oh, this is really bad. And then he was laughing and talking to himself. So that he still is. I wish I could read lips, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and use my psychic powers, which have been proven to be very accurate in the past, and say, oh damn, I'm losing this game right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the standard probe reaction. He loves to sort of tell himself off or maybe complain a little bit about Terran when these things happen.
He is not happy about that observer. That observer getting sniped there, and now the Widowmine coming back in the main. Of course, this is kind of that self-frustration. You know, and you can see it's deeply in control. So this is very much a frantic effort to get back in control of your side of the map. Keep in mind, with this build, Seither's follow-up army is not the scariest thing. It's a handful of Marines, a medevac, a tank, a Raven, his second barracks, his third barracks, all slowly kind of dripping in there. One engineering bay going down, not two at a time. He does have the quick third command center, does Seither. And the kind of next big attack is most likely a big kind of 3-base attack. Probably nothing hitting any time before, say 8 minutes 30, 9 minutes in this game to Probe side. So Probe, he's got a little bit of time to himself if he can kind of ascertain that. But having the Observer snipe means he's a little unsure. So these Stalkers are foraging for information. And we're going to see just how greedy is he comfortable being when he doesn't have that information about the third CC.
There's going to be a bit of a bother here at the front, but the tank is making that quite difficult. There's not really any ground to gain for him here, but he's just sort of having a poke, keeping him honest. He's got to head out of there and sort of figure out how he's going to get out of this bit of a pickle that Seither's put him in. He is getting that Colossus production underway, and Extended Thermal Lance is coming soon as well. And, you know, once you got a couple of Colossi out, you feel a little bit more comfy, especially against those sort of tank pushes that the Terran might come throw at you. But he's not quite there yet. We'll also keep tabs on that drop that just loaded up and left to see if that may do a little bit more damage. I'm not sure how much Probe would be paying attention to that dead space up there.
The Raven will spot the Observer, so I really like that Raven leading the charge. It'll get spotted, but he should be able to see the Observer and take it out. Siege tank defending the third, so no inroads there into the territory. And actually, Observer's in pervert mode. It gets to see the Raven. Raven don't get to see it.
Wow. Nice map awareness from Probe to just scoot that over a little bit so that it doesn't get caught out, but he's already putting stuff in place to make sure he can handle this double drop, while Seither, none the wiser, thinks he's gotten away with it.
Oh, yeah. It's good that he's being patient until he sets up elsewhere, but you can tell Probe's adding cannons. He's got Stalkers ready. Cannon in each base, Colossus Scouts building charges there on the way as well. Probe is up about 10-15 workers right now. He's going to add a second forge as well. Once he moves out to a fourth base, he'll be kind of like much more exposed to run by his drops attacks. So I kind of like that Probe's just happy to sit on 3 base for now and really improve the quality of his army.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the nice thing about Romanticide, right? You're tucked away. It's a little bit hard for people to get right up in your face until you spread yourself a little bit more thin like that. Looks like now might be the time for Seither to think about putting some pressure on. The Colossi are now out. Charge is also finished, so that certainly helps with the defense. And look at this. These drops are quite doomed.
Oh no, this is really bad to see that Probe's a little slow to respond, but it don't matter. That's just way too many units for Probe. And I mean, even with 4 auto turrets, his bio is going to kill like a Stalker for a double drop and all the Raven's energy. That is not a good trade for Seither, but his army's getting up on the third without Probe seeing it to the last moment.
He brings a couple of Colossi up to try and find position here, but that is 5 tanks. And
there's very little bio. So, like, Zealots will get on that way too fast. Oh, I actually think Seither needs to pull back. That is true.
Seither actually continuing to rally up here and reposition the tanks, trying to find the best way to move forward here. Starting to mix some Vikings in as well to help deal with the Colossi. He's just inching forward bit by bit.
You're absolutely right about that Zealot count. I keep expecting to see 8 Zealots warp in, another 8 Zealots, and it kind of feels like we're not seeing that at all. Probe does have a 4th on the low ground, so we technically could give this up and still be 3 base, but And losing the gas mining is always a bit of a nightmare. He's going to try and picket this with a disruptor, and not really going to find anything at all. Probe's going to do a bit of a zealot attack across the map there. And I think he just realizes he can't quite fight that army until he gets a bigger zealot count. And look at this, Seither well prepared to defend his third at the same time. Seither's got a fourth on the way behind this as well. He's got a Ghost Academy coming down. His 1-1's finishing up. Seither is in a great position right now.
Yeah, Probe just can't quite clean this up. And it's a decently deep tank line. He looks like he's going to move forward now that he's got some Archons and Zealots in tow. But that is a lot of damage coming out from Seither, and he actually has to back up. He's not quite ready to commit there yet. Maybe just chipping away. Now that he has the disruptors, perhaps he can start getting rid of those tanks that are closest to the front. But this is still a really annoying situation for Probe to deal with.
Disruptors do outrange siege tanks just barely by half a range if you can get it pixel.
And these disruptors moving forward here. The Marauders are actually going to target down the Nexus as he tries to snipe that base. He does get it. The Protoss, unfortunately, not able to crack this big Terran force here just yet. Big load up from Seither. He's actually going to go into the main here as well. And these Stalkers targeting down the medevacs. But there's so much unloading from those medevacs immediately that he has to back up. The Colossi trying to pop over the ledge there and fire some lasers. But unfortunately, he's not really getting a lot of bang for his buck there. Seither does decide to collect himself and move back. But yeah, the third base did go down. Probe's got another expansion happening.
This is actually looking like, I think it's pretty good patience from Probe. When you look at the upgrade situation for Seither, that's not getting out of control. He's got good tank count. He's adding Ghost. It's still a very scary army, but it's not progressing that quickly. There's no upgrades on the way. He is getting more barracks, but you know, there's no double command center or anything. Seither's still kind of in timing attack mode, and Probe has enough disruptors to really zone him back and control the map. So, and look at that, a little zealot run by gets in 7 or 10 probes going down. Disruptor shots here, going to be fantastic. Seither getting a bit ahead of himself because his siege tanks are out of position. The bio on its own cannot handle this army.
That's exactly right. The disruptor is very valuable, but so are these zealots, which have come in and torn asunder that third base, getting a tank at the end there as well. And finally, Probe is able to gather some momentum here and have some things work in his favor. And, you know, all that patience is starting to pay off here as he's got quite the army getting close to maxed out. And this is more or less the composition he wants. He's now adding in that DT shrine.
Yeah, this has been a bit of a momentum shift. I mean, Seither still doesn't have 2-2 on the way. And he's got this big army, but it's not going to the next step. So feels like maybe he doesn't quite want to play the super late game here, or maybe he's forgotten about those upgrades. But down to 50 SCVs now versus 70 only building units. He queues up a few SCVs there, does Seither. He's rebuilding the Viking count. Now he starts +2 on the bio weapons, but Probe's on the way to 3-3. I think Seither, he did some good damage on the third. He killed a base, he killed some probes, he killed some units, but Probe has calmly avoided engaging on the Terran's terms. And this is kind of the secret to playing against Terran for you know, people out there. It's Terran has the best siege units in the game. They have great high damage, low hit point units set up on cliffs, on ledges. That beautiful tank line he had before, you can't really fight into that. But what is Probe doing? Well, he's not fighting him on his terms. He's backstabbing, he's chipping away at the army when it's out on the map, but whenever it sieges, he pulls back and finds a different angle, and he forces Seither to come to him. And it feels like Seither now is being forced into the longer game, but he didn't really want to be going there, and you can kind of see that he doesn't have all of the pieces that he wouldn't want if he was planning to play a 20-30 minute game.
Probe coming in for another attack here. He's got quite a bit of splash with him, but Seither is already set up to fend him off from that position. It's not the most ideal one for Probe to press the issue. He's got a group of zealots here as well that's in range of that sensor turret, just looking for another opportunity to do some damage. So Probe really has wrestled back map control at this point. He's just chilling about the middle of the map. He's not being dropped or harassed at all at the moment, so he's getting everything and more that a Protoss could want. 3 Stargates pick. DT, Blink, Storm. Ooh. The works.
Everything coming in, and that's the point where I think Probe is so scary. I think, you know, early game, mid game, even I guess you could say late game Seither can do well versus Probe if he's kind of planning for that stage, but end game, when all the pieces are on the board, I think Probe is pretty much unparalleled in this region.
Yeah, I really do think that's it. Seither, when we've seen him kill Probe a little more decisively, has certainly been more around the mid game. Nice little run by here from Probe, but again, Seither's defense at that third base is quite solid. But looks like he's found an opportunity to move out a little bit. Probe knows all about it, so he's going to reposition as well to avoid getting caught out here.
Oh, heavy swap straight into Tempests and Psystorm. So Psystorm and Tempest is going to be very... I mean, the Storm is amazing versus Vikings, Medivacs, Bio, of course, though very vulnerable to EMP. Tempest very good at picking away at a mass siege tank force, but there's actually already a good squad of Vikings out, so it's kind of dangerous to get too many Tempests up here if you're in Probe's shoes. That being said, Probe kind of realizes his army is going to be very fragile, so he's building 8 more gateways. He is realizing the ability to just warp in tons of extra Zealots and Stalkers. That often is what keeps you alive in these battles, where you lose all your meat, and it's like, oh, save the Disruptors, save the Colossus. Just warping in a few more Zealots sometimes turns that fight around.
Tank's almost helping out these Zealots a little bit here to do some extra damage. I think Probe is going to continue to throw stuff down there just to see if he can ever find a gap. And he's also expanding towards that bottom left while he circles around to this top right position. That's a pretty fortified position for Seither. Disruptor shots go out ahead and the Storm's behind as he retreats.
Time to repair those Vikings, that's for sure. Chase just a little bit far into that, and indeed he will start repairing that up. Seither's now got 5 bases up pretty solid. He's making a 6th and 7th command. I was about to say, the one thing he really needs is more scan to track where the army is, but also to deal with big Blink Dark Templar counterattacks that could come in later on. So if Seither can improve his orbital command count, he can also lower his SCVs because he can replace them with mules, have a bigger standing army, and that's going to be fantastic in the long run.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I expected a longer game from these two, but I didn't quite expect like tier 3 long from these guys. It was pretty awesome for our first match of the night. Seither just sitting back comfortably trying to get to that place he wants to be with his army, +3 attack, halfway done at this point. And Probe still sort of circling like a shark, looking for angles to take a bite out of Seither's army, or perhaps out of his economy if he's lucky enough to find a naked mineral line. But Seither pretty well defended. Actually has to move down towards his third base position though, because Probe has found a spot for these Tempests to start picking away at things.
Those Tempests are very fragile. When you take their shields off, they crumple like paper. Look at that. That was even one of the one that had full shields, and it just disappears like that. So you really rely on the threat of the Psystorm keeping the Vikings back to make those Tempests effective.
Yeah, now that the Vikings are here, I wonder, does he actually stay here? Because every time he moves forward, those Disruptors get hit. Yeah, gotta maybe find a different spot. Leaves 3 Disruptors behind, so that could be cool if he wants to throw them into the mineral line or continue trying to cull the tank count. It's just, yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not sure if it's worth it because I feel like he'll eventually lose them, but he lost them before I could say that. But yeah, I mean, Probe is max. It's not like he's suffering from units here or anything. He just probably adds on another Tempest or 2 and continues his harassment.
That low worker count is going to lead to a big bank differential, right? We're already at 1,500 resources in the bank for Seither and over 7,000 for Probe. That being said, there is a battlecruiser transition on the way for Seither, which is fantastic. Now, it's only 2 at a time, but he's got double upgrades going for them. He's got Yamato, and battlecruisers really are, in my opinion, the ultimate endgame unit. Now, the thing is, they do get wrecked by Tempests in a one-directional fight, where the Tempest can like revelate them or use an observer and just shoot, pull back, and the battlecruisers just can't catch them. But if you surprise the Tempests, you teleport on top of them, and you can Yamato them down before they recall, that can just, wow, Tempests disappear. Battlecruisers literally can clear capital ships with just a couple of their abilities. It costs nothing but cooldown. So the battlecruisers over time can also start to harass the mineral lines and run in and start to take them down. Now, this is awesome use of Tempests there. Run by in the top is going to come in, but see, they're quick enough with the repair. Multiple turrets, battlecruisers are there to back that up. Now, that does show the battlecruiser card is in play. But look at these Tempests in the south. Probe here is trying to kind of bait Seither out into the open, take some bad fights. He's going to chip it in with the Tempest. And I think he was already happy to have Tempests out in this game just to chip away at the siege tanks. Now he sees battle cruisers and he's like, oh, okay. I'll make even more. Let's make 4 more Tempests. Like, I think he'd be very happy to go right up to like 14, maybe even 15 Tempests in this game.
Yeah, we're very much getting a split map here, but I feel like they're both going to start playing whack-a-mole, right? Because you've got BCs that can teleport around. You've got Tempest trying to pick off bits and pieces along with DT Blink. There's obviously Seither doing the nukes here as well. So they've both got to be kind of mindful of each component of these late game armies and the harassment potential, because it's kind of past that point where you're going to have that like little mid-game skirmish, maybe someone takes a bad fight. They're kind of more just pulling each other apart and trying to find that one spot that they're not set up, or that one bit of army that's out of position. So let's see how we go, as 3 nukes at a time are getting loaded up for Seither, and he sends those ghosts out on patrol. Tempest still looking for tanks to pick off here and there.
Probe's coming in for a little bit of a sacrifice there, just trying to clear a bit of supply. Now the ghosts are moving out for the nuke harass, and Probe already with such a big bank, this is definitely going to allow him to beef up his army. He's still out there posturing. That being said, that is a battle cruiser that is snuck into the base there and is going to start to Yamato and take down the cannon, do some economic damage. Battle cruisers on the south are going to catch a bunch of Dark Templar as well, which he's going to actually Yamato a few of those. This is great harassment from Seither here. He's realizing he doesn't need to fight front on. For him, it's a matter of don't get caught out in a big bad fight. Just chip away slowly over time. And oh my god, that could be so valuable. But I think there's an observer trailing in behind. No, there is not. So you know what? This is actually just causing more and more things for Probe to worry about right now. It's going to be very hard for him to track all of these. Keep an eye on Probe's face in that webcam. You're going to see it's very stressful to deal with. You get the nuke warning, but you have no idea where it is unless you spot that red dot, and it's way smaller on his screen than it is for us.
Yeah, it's really hard to figure out where that is, especially when you've got so many bases and so many valuable targets. The nukes can sometimes just be to get your army in a better position as well, so it definitely puts you on high alert. He's making a couple of observers at a time here just to make sure that he feels that need. Nice DT blink here. I don't think that's a base that Seither's going to be able to save, and another command center falls down the bottom to the Tempest.
Oh, okay. Colossus wandering ahead of the army there and do get sniped out. Bit of a mistake from Probe. Maybe he didn't want them anymore though, you know? He's really working on just Zealots and DTs as expendable run-by units and then all the rest. I think Seither needs to be aware these DT Zealot run-bys are going to continue. So the best thing you can actually do is leave a Liberator or 2 or a couple of Widow Mines sieged with the Planetary Fortress. Widow Mines are especially good because the Dark Templar are incredibly fragile units. It only takes the splash of 2 Widow Mines to kill them. So they're going to clump up when they blink in. They're going to take massive Widow Mine hits. And yeah, trying to just land an undefended orbital ain't going to cut it. Now, Seither's at that point. He needs to secure another base. He's got no bank here. So this could be checkmate if Probe can just keep chipping away at him and deny that base. I mean, he might even kill this base. This is huge.
Yeah, the damage is really starting to stack up here. He's bopping these bases left, right, and center, and the worker counts are plummeting as well. Late game, you don't necessarily need a ton of SCVs, but you do need some to keep financing your army. It's not like Seither has a huge bank to work with at the moment. He's still doing his own harassment, but Probe looks like he's had a little bit more of a handle on it than his opponent has for the time being.
Ooh, Yamato's going to go down, but not enough to take out an Archon on its own, and that did use tactical jump to get in position. Not enough Marauders, and they can get taken down by the Zealot DT, so this is what I'm talking about. If you don't have kind of like Liberator Mine or something, or a big squad of Bio Ghost hunting these attacks down, they're very hard to deal with, and Probe has so many gateways he can replenish them at any moment.
Yeah, hit squad for Probe moving up towards the top right. Once again, this third base finally gets cracked, and that CC is not long for this world. Neither is any structure sitting there, to be honest. The Vikings are landing to help out against this harassment. The battle cruisers moving into that 12 o'clock base as well. Probe's not going to be able to defend that, but Seither taking so much damage at the same time. Both of them trading significant blows at the moment.
Yeah, the battle cruisers are going to keep pushing in because he just has nothing at home to really answer this. He's bringing his Bio Ghost down, but it won't be able to deal with that massive Tempest army on its own. Not with the disruptors there, especially. Oh. Wow.
Oh, camping right on top of that Tempest zone. Gets one for free, gets a second one. Oh, maybe not. Gonna target down the Stargates instead. And these Zealots, Tempest, and the rest of the Protoss army are gonna close in on this 4th base location. The Vikings fighting on the ground here. The Zealots are gonna make short work of that planetary. Oh, the disruptor shots! Oh, goodness. GG.
Yeah, Seither was not happy with that fight there. The base trade not going well for Seither. I think that was really well done by Probe. The moment he cracked that base in the top, Seither was already low on money, and then he kept pulling the attention and lots of units up to that north side, moved his army in on the south, and I love the way Probe just so expertly was kind of hitting on multiple sides, poking in from the bottom and the top at the same moment. What a cool way to start off this series. That was a very long game.
Yeah, that was definitely a treat. It's not that often that you see like the full nuke BC Tempest DT Blink soup that we had in the last moments of that game, but it was definitely a cool one. A fantastic start to the game for Seither, let's not forget. But Probe, defensive play, gets his 3 base, starts to build up, very patiently deals with the pressure from Seither, and he just takes it from there.
Yeah, I wonder here if Seither, like, are you meant to keep pushing? You know, do you try to get your tanks right up to that ledge and elevator into the main? Because he was very slow to transition to the next step. When he did, I actually think he got quite well set up. But you've definitely got to argue that if the game's going to go this long, he needed more SCVs and more orbital command centers earlier in the game. He was sitting on 50 SCVs for a long time, worked his way up to 60 or 70. Usually for this sort of setup, what do you want to see? 85, 90 workers. You know, you want that giant economy where you can just cover the map and all these things. And the sooner you get those battle cruisers going, the better. The sooner you get planetaries up. I've seen people go 2 planetaries at a base because they're expecting those DT attacks in. You know, it's like, there's like 20 DTs blinking and they're like, wait, there's 2 planetaries and a tank and 2 liberators overhead. And you're like, oh, DTs can't break that suddenly. And it sounds like a lot of supply and investment, but as you go to past 5 bases to 6 to 7 as a Terran, that's how you lose. It's always having an exposed base on its own, and a planetary, it's powerful, it's tanky, but it needs a little bit more damage backing it up.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a really tough situation to deal with, but I'm sure that Seither can fine-tune that a little bit and definitely put some points on the board. These guys often go with a 3-2 score in the end. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it'll be map number 2. Don't go away. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that quick refreshment break. We are back now for map number 2 between Probe and Seither. This is a best of 5 in the first round of the playoffs bracket. And boy, that was a long macro game. What a treat. And we'll soon see if the rest of the games are going to follow that formula, or if we might see a couple of shorter ones. I feel like Seither might have a couple of tricks up his sleeve to knock out Probe a little sooner. I agree with your point during that game that Probe, once he gets that late game position, perhaps a little bit more solid for him.
Yeah, there's so few people who still look that good with Tempests, but I feel like Probe, he's like, any excuse, like, give me an excuse to build Tempest, please. You know, he's so good with them. And these players, when you play this like constant tank production style, it's very hard for Protoss to kill you, but it does give them an incentive to go to that Sky style. I think it was a really great setup, but well, I'll kind of go into a little bit more detail in a moment. Let's just introduce these players. In the bottom left-hand side, representing a Mind Freak Esports, this is Seither.
And leading 1-0 from Legacy, this is Probe.
So my mind keeps going back to that Raven with the double medevac, because I feel like I really like these kind of macro but push style Terrans where, you know, you might hear a pro call it, oh, it's kind of like a 3-base all in or something like that, you know, where the Terran doesn't really want to go past 1-1 upgrades and they just want to like big bio tank push off 3-base. It's a great way of playing. What's hard is making the Protoss fight you and getting in range of a base with your tanks and really forcing them to. So I really love the Raven and the double medevac, but it actually ended up kind of hurting Seither because it's just such a funny thing. Like, you send the Raven to be sure that it didn't get spotted without you knowing about it, and then it ends up just barely going through the edge of the observer vision, and Probe even spots it, shuffles the observer away. But then you've got this sense of confidence, like, well, maybe there's a few Stalkers sitting in the main for safety, but he doesn't know I'm here. He's not going to have a Colossus and like 9 Stalkers or whatever it was waiting in the main. And that really, I think, took the brunt out of the push. You know, if that didn't go so well for Probe in the main, I mean, he even after that struggled to defend the third. He lost the Nexus even. So I think you can see, if that wasn't scouted ahead of time, I can imagine in practice Seither just steamrolls through the third base so much quicker because his tanks get sieged right on front of it. That drop maybe does damage in the main, picks up, hides in the back to come in later. Like, I can really see how that would play out totally differently.
Yeah, I mean, there were some great moments in that game for Seither, and he definitely could have taken it, but it's just one of those things in the back and forth. Suddenly you start losing ground, and you have to try again in the next map, make slightly better decisions, maybe get a little luckier. So see how we go here on 2000 Atmospheres. It's again pretty quiet early game. We do have 3 racks coming out here for Seither there.
Yeah, and it's the delayed double Reaper. And you know what? Probe has sent his Adept across the map. Does he have a second Adept out right now? Or is it just that delayed Stalker? I think it might just be that delayed Stalker.
Yeah.
Yeah, he actually... Oh, no, there is a Stalker on the high ground. So, and he actually does delay the command center. And he's very well defended if the Stalker's there for the Reapers. That being said, the Reapers are always a surprise. No one expects those Reapers at this moment, so they could kill 4 or 5 probes, and if they can do that, it'll be really good. But, this Adept's getting out of control. It's doing a lot of damage.
Ooh. Man. Seither not looking too bad in these early games, finding ways to do damage, but both of them losing 3 workers apiece here. Reapers can always hop back in for another try, but for the moment, he's going to run away with those. Grab that probe if he's paying attention. Wow.
That's a brave probe. It's like, yeah, you run away. I'm like, what? The probe has no business starting a fight with those Reapers. It did not deserve to get out of that one scot-free.
Adept patrolling around, just having a look. Likewise, the Reaper's going to just sit at that watchtower for a little bit and keep looking out on the map. It looks like that early game aggression has sort of tapered off for the moment. And we're starting to see the tech come out here. Probe opting for Blink again into Robo. Pretty normal for him. Whereas Seither, did get an NG beta.
That worker count's worrying me for Seither. I was like, this isn't a great opening, but I'm upgrading that. Bad weather forecast before. It's really bad for Seither now with those 3 SCVs plus the command center delay and investing 100 minerals and 100 gas in the Reapers to not really do anything to Probe. I mean, this is looking fantastic for Probe, but I think he's just going to go a quick Robo Bay here is what I would imagine, since he's gone for such fast 4 gas. Is it a 4-gate blink? He doesn't have 4 gateways, does he?
3.
Yeah, just 3. So, yeah, I think he'll just be going Colossus third base is what I would imagine, but he's just so ahead on workers. He's got a good force out. That being said, the bio looks like it might sneak out the left side of the map. I think, Observer spots it.
Yeah. Stalker's heading back home here, and the shield battery's coming up, knowing that he's going to have a bit of damage arriving at his front doorstep here in a second. There's the Stalker warp-ins as well. And he's just going to be looking to hold on here as Seither gets closer to attacking here. The Observer goes out ahead just to see where that army's actually at. Shield battery's not quite done. He's going to try and pick off a couple of Marines here using that Blink Micro to save the wounded Stalkers, but it's difficult with that much damage output. Now he's in shield battery territory. Seither microing up the ramp slightly just so we can get in here on top of the workers. But how much damage is he actually able to do here?
Not that much. The early part looked kind of good. He killed like maybe 4 or 5 Stalkers, but only 2 probes in the tail end of that. The battery overcharge doing very, very well. And as you can see in the battle report, I think that's totally fine because Probe already had the worker advantage. His third is untouched throughout this, so it's going to be finishing up soon. And this is a very delayed version of the build in terms of starport and upgrades. +1, only halfway done for Seither, whereas that's like, usually with this sort of build, you can get that really early. And there's no medevacs for another minute on the map, which means what mobility does he have? What threatening factors? This gives Probe an absolute clampdown on map control. Stalkers control the front of the base. He knows nothing else can be leaving. Double Forge, charge. He's going to probe up his third base. This is looking like a great position for Probe to just smoothly jump up into that big 3-base setup. And from there, you've got a Seither who hasn't even started the third command center. Is he just forced to all in here? If he is, I don't think it really has much of a punch to it. So without any really good long-range defensive units like siege tanks or anything, I'm at a bit of a loss. Does he just pull the boys here?
Might do. I mean, it's certainly been the option that he's taken before and just gone pretty ham, not only on having the boys buffer for him, but building bunkers and turrets and whatever he needs to build basically a Terran empire out the front of his opponent's base. But it looks like for the moment he's going to opt for the drop play. Probe does have a fair few units scattered out through the map to spot for things coming in from different directions, so we'll see if that's actually successful. This small force has already been spotted by that one observer.
Oh, he's got to get out of there. Great force fields, nabbing 2 of the Marauders there. Third command center's on the way as the double drop snakes down the right side for Seither. He wants to play the longer game as he starts adding siege tanks to the anti-Colossus power, but the upgrades and production are starting to outstrip him. This double drop's got a bit of work to do, and it is a surprise to Probe, so it does have an opportunity, but he's a little wary of just sending it in on its lonesome. You know, it's so easy for a Protoss to defend something if there's not another problem on the map at the same time.
More and more army being generated here from Seither as he adds on another couple of racks here. But still not having committed to a big attack just yet. Now that he has a couple of tanks, he may pressure, but there's already Colossi here. There's not that much Protoss, but there's plenty that I feel like it shouldn't be too bad for Probe to defend. Extended Thermal Lance not done quite yet, halfway, and he's still got another Colossus on the way there too, along with the DT Shrine. But he's actually going to come out to meet him, because he's feeling pretty good about this, and Seither turns around immediately like, not sure I actually want to attack into that, but that said, he does still have this drop going, and he may be able to get a worker or 2 there.
Yeah, a couple workers, bit of mining time could get the Dark Shrine as well, which is a big pick-off, and that's going to be great. No DTs warped in, and it goes down, so great play here by Seither, getting back into this game. Doesn't want to lose his army, though. That's a lot of Zealots. His tanks are very exposed, but Probe cautious for now. And actually, Seither keeps his tanks alive. He exerts some pressure. He doesn't want to hang around too long. And I also don't know if he wants to force his way in. There is only 1 Colossus here right now, though. Oh, wait, the second one is there. I think this is actually a really good tank position.
Yeah, this is the spot for Terran tanks, that's for sure. And he can continue to rally to that position behind it and sort of thicken that up if he feels like it's going well too. The Colossi having to wait here for a second. I think a third one did pop, but he's got only the 1 shield battery to fall back to, and this is always an annoying position for the Protoss to try and hold. He's still got a bulk of the army there in the main, I think, in preparation for any further drops. But yeah, Seither's going to be able to start picking away here and making it really awkward for Probe to try and deflect even that small squad of Marauders without taking tank fire to the face, and he's actually going to give that up.
Yeah, repeat here of game number 1. Seither snipes the 3rd, Probe force transfer to the 4th, but a big Zealot attack goes in, and Seither's 2 committed one more time. And look at that, Probe's even going to jump on the tanks as they retreat. He says, no getting home scot-free. Nuh-uh, you push to my side of the map, I'm going to take all of your siege tanks off the map.
Couple of nice snipes on the Vikings there, but these Zealots are the real heroes of the day, getting in here doing some damage. There is some damage happening on Probe's side of the map as well, but it's not ramping up like the worker kills on Seither's side of the map. He's still got those couple of drops alive, which is pretty good. But he's really starting to take a beating here. He just has nothing to respond to these Zealots because all his army is out here in the middle of the map, going to try and pressure that, well, I guess now it's the 3rd base, was the 4th. And not that much army here for Probe, but he's quite happy to wreak havoc in those mineral lines at the moment.
That's just too many SCVs going down. 40 SCVs, and Seither now ends up basically all in. I love the double drop from the back on top of the Colossus. One of them, though, is still alive. Finally, the Vikings take it down. Seither here takes a fantastic engagement. Is it going to be enough, though? So many reinforcements coming in. The Zealot count is out of this world.
Yeah, this is pretty huge. Seither doing his best effort here, but ultimately he has lost so much. Just trying to make this work as a bit of a last hurrah. But Probe has just enough to not only beat this back, but to continue producing back at home. Because let's not forget, his economy is still fine despite losing a few workers here and there. He's still pumping out upgrades and all that. So he just needs a little bit of a breather to get some more warp-ins in, maybe get another Colossus. But he will eventually stabilize here, and Seither just has to keep the pressure up because he's got nothing else going for him.
Yeah, this is completely all in for Seither, and whilst he's only down 10 army supply, defender's advantage. Probe has defender's advantage. A lot of the bio is wounded. It's not at full life, and that's before it even stims. So this is just really bad for Seither. He is at almost half the supply of Probe. Probe's going to hit his 3rd with another Zealot attack, and it's going to force him to kind of go all in. Says, hey, you need to have some urgency with this. My Zealots are in your 3rd base right now.
Yes, the Archons and Gateway units here going to do the bulk of the work against this Bioforce on the right-hand side here, and that is the last straw for Seither. He taps out with a single G, and Probe looking satisfied with that win. But perhaps not super pleased just yet. He still seems to be yelling about Terran a little bit there.
Yeah, he's finding himself in dicey situations. I mean, he's hanging on, but your game plan is never, oh yeah, just, you know, give up the third and kill every SCV with a Zealot counterattack. I mean, this is something which arguably if Seither, you know, was backing off from that, maybe had a few more units rallied at home or a wall off up or something, there's a chance he kind of lifts the third, runs the SCVs away, defends the natural. But I love the opportunistic way that Probe kind of jumped on it. Keep in mind, I don't think the early game at the very start, the Adept had already put Seither behind. When he came in with this, it was 35 versus 50 probes. He needed to do damage, and he didn't find a crazy amount of it. This double drop, though, is what set him up to start finding some nice engagements here and there. But this was actually right after all the siege tanks got caught. So while that fight looked like a win for Seither, lost every siege tank in a small trade he did not want to do. Did a cool move here with that double drop coming in from the back, but at the end of the day, 2-2 upgrades versus 1-1. Probe still with a big mineral economy just going stable. And that was like 40 SCVs that had died to the Zealot backstab. And that was just too much economy for Seither to lose.
Yeah, it was a lot. I felt like those couple of shield batteries in the early to mid game were the MVPs as well, because when Seither did find a way to get in there, they cancelled out a lot of his damage, unfortunately, and it was like mostly units that got taken out in the end. So Probe's economy, even despite losing a Nexus, never took such a serious blow like Seither's did. And yeah, Probe ends up running away with it at that point. Better tech, better upgrades, 4 bases, and Seither's really struggling for some cash and an army that can actually compete with Probe's sort of big Protoss composition there. So that does put Probe on match point as we come into map number 3.
Seither finds himself between a rock and a hard place now. This is the conundrum of a Terran player. I don't want to give Protoss a free pass to late game, but how do you not overcommit, have the Protoss just kind of slip away from all of the key engagements? That timing where your army's stronger seems to disappear, and suddenly, you know, your attack, you killed a base, it's not enough. You're dead, you're bleeding out, you know. He's going to have to find a way to shift something up, because 2 games in a row, we've seen much of the same in where the mid-game ended up and what the result was. So he's got to go back to the drawing board, at least for that stage of the game. Bottom left side of Blackburn in the red, it's Mindfreak Esports Seither.
And on match point from Legacy here in the bottom right and in the blue, this is Probe.
Probe coming across pretty early, just going to make sure he doesn't get caught with any cheeky shenanigans.
Yes. Because it is Blackburn, and while some people play this fairly straight up, it is kind of a bit of a shenanigan map. We do see some weird stuff on here. Obviously there's gold bases in play, there's some nice little ledges next to the main, there's destructible rocks towards that base at the bottom, so you have some options if you want to do something a little bit wild. And we'll just have to see what happens here. How do you feel about this map TVP wise, Pig? Is there a specific advantage for one race over the other here?
I don't like playing it from the Protoss side. I think it's really hard to play against some of the tank pushers down the bottom side when they hug the ledge. As well as, even though there's these slow zones, there's so much space in the main, it's so far away from the higher bases, the third and so on, that I find it hard to defend drops. On the other hand, I hate trying to push across this map into Protoss as Terran, so this map plays different to the others. I find it hard to say like an absolute, it's better for this race or worse for that. I would say it's amazing for like mech versus Zerg. Zerg can't really find a way in versus mech. Don't think Seither's going to play mech first Protoss. I doubt he's kind of specialized in, you know, such an extreme style just for one map in the pool. But I guess, yeah, those bunker pushes definitely are what stands out for me when I think about this map. There was Seither versus Hez, wasn't it? In ANZ Champs, actually, on this map, where there was like 8 bunkers outside outside the base.
Yeah, that's right. That was a ridiculous game, that one.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was the one. I think Pez was winning as well if he cut off the rally, but he kind of didn't. He just like defended, and then fought it from one angle. So I think it was one of those games where Pez actually did everything like perfect up to that point, and then he just kind of, it's that thing where you don't realize that like, oh, he's not going to commit. He's just going to keep building bunkers. You're like, doesn't he have to inch forward? And like, he just built the greatest number of bunkers and wall outside your base. You're like, oh, okay. Even without stim, Marines are pretty good if they've got like 8 or 10 bunkers to sit in.
Yeah, that was a weird game. And it's hard to judge that scenario, to be fair. It's not exactly what you come up against every single day. Not to that extreme, at least. But yeah, it does. That's why when I look at these series, I wonder, as Seither, do you throw one of those tank pushes in there with the bunkers and the whole shebang? Because that has definitely got him a fair few TVP wins. But hold that thought. Couple of other depths slipping in here to try and do some damage. The Marines are going to try and chase them down. We also have the Phoenix opener for Probe at the same time, so he gets a full scout of the main there.
And nice movement with those adepts in the Phoenix, just seeing everything, getting little bits of pinpricks, and this is so good. In general, anytime you scout the 3 racks nice and early, it's fantastic for you as the Protoss player. It allows you to kind of adapt a little bit. It's going to get a shield battery, or 2 in fact. Which seems almost overly careful, in my opinion, to be getting them so early in the game, but it's just going to keep up Phoenix production. And I imagine we're going to see just straight to Colossus tech and really delay the 3rd base here, because with the Phoenix tech, to try and get a 3rd base up before, you get out some sort of extra tech, it's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. And having all these bio units out on the map in just a little bit, these are the builds that come at your 3rd nice and early too, when you really don't have enough stuff to deal with it. So you would probably end up losing it or cancelling it anyway. At this point, Probe just trying to warp in a little bit more, and he's sitting with those shield batteries, getting an Immortal in the mix as well, just because he knows that Seither's going to try and pressure here. In comes this bunch of Marines. Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder if he'll sort of poke up there and turn around immediately, because there's a fair bit of defense here. Overcharge goes off right away too.
I wouldn't mind Seither hiding these Marines up to the north and hanging around with like 1 in range to see when the Nexus goes down, and then try to do a cheeky stim in, cancel it once, and then run home to your side of the map. It's ambitious, and some would say looking for greedy damage you're not going to get away with. But I think it's always an option, something you can look for, and he is going to keep those Marines on that side of the map for a little bit longer, so he might poke in for that. Starports are finishing up, +1 upgrade is on the way, but the Phoenix doing bits of damage to a Terran who's already on 2 base. And Probe is over-probed. 53 workers on 2 bases. So when he does take that expansion, he's already going to have plenty of workers to send down there.
Yeah, he's playing it safe. This is a bit of a token of Probe's play, I feel. He's quite happy to let his opponent come to him. He's not necessarily the aggressor in any of the games that I've seen him play. It's more once, mid to late game, full army movement. We see a lot less of him making little moves here and there. With Phoenixes, of course, you do a little bit of harassment. He does lose a couple of those, unfortunately, but he's just been keeping tabs on Seither. Nexus now building, and Colossi are, of course, coming out here too, so he's feeling a little bit more confident about being on the slow ground.
Nice little Phoenix dance, ring around the rosy for them, of course, charge, Colossus. Adept's going to look for just a bit of scouting and maybe some light harassment as that 3rd base finally does come down, and definitely feels like this is Probe back in his comfort zone. And even early on, the work account wasn't that great for Seither, so I think one thing, if this does end up being a 3-0, that I'm starting to wonder is, has Seither in this game and the previous one with the 3-racks builds not had a smooth enough economy? Whether it's an SCV being missed, or maybe he could have been a little greedy here or there in the opening, I'm not sure. But it just feels like definitely Probe has kind of got his finger on the pulse of what's going on and is getting ahead slowly and gradually.
Yeah, he has adapted quite well. Has had a fair bit of practice against this stuff recently. And Getting chased away here with that small group of Marines. But yeah, Probe's looking good. Getting close to that extended thermal lance. I think he just dropped a whole bunch of gateways as well to ramp up that production now that the third base economy is starting to kick in here. So he should be well equipped to deal with what's to come from Seither. And these zealots coming up towards the north here, actually, did he see that or did he just miss that army? Because he's pulling back towards that third base.
Yeah, this is interesting because it looks like Seither might try to pick up into the main here or even siege the low ground cliff area. Oh, the Vikings here. Oh, no, that's really bad for Probe. He's losing all of his Phoenix.
Well, Probe is aware of what's going on here, though, because he's seen that force at the top, and he knows that Seither was thinking about trying to split him there. We'll see what happens with that double drop if he's just going to actually join up with the main force and go towards that sort of weird ledge position. You're not usually in range to hit too much, but
he's just going to try and jump on half the army at the front. He's hoping to catch these units out of position. Probe, a lot of his army is up in the main, but oh, he's on the ramps and with the shield batteries. That's actually such good positioning by Probe.
Zealots in the mineral lines once again. This has really been the way for Probe to do most of the damage throughout these games so far. And Seither's going to try and move forward here. He's got a nice setup. 3 tanks there, a few Vikings to help zone out as well. Lots of SCVs going down here though, and a couple of Vikings actually have to land to help that DPS. Okay, he's still trying to find the right way to move forward here. He's actually going to stim straight into this third base. There is a Colossus or two here, but the Vikings are targeting those down right away.
A little bit of siege tank friendly fire, but overall a very good fight for Seither. Gets the Colossus there. And these other units going to come down the ramp, but that's into the siege tanks, and that ramp is brutal. I mean, that ramp is not one you want to go down into siege tanks.
Such a sticky situation, because he wants to save that third base, of course, but he can't come down that ramp. As you pointed out, a lot of his army has been sitting towards that main, but he's got the flank from the Zealots. He goes straight for those tanks. He gets on top of them, takes out 2 right away. The third one has a fairly long life there, but there's still so much turn left over, and I think we're going to be seeing him tap out here in just a second. He's talking to himself already. There's the grin, and GG.
I really wish we had subtitles for that or something. Like, I just want to know exactly what he's saying.
Yeah, he has actually streamed himself a few times, like his first person in past tournaments, while he's also been on stream, like just his camera. So you're just getting his reactions, and it is pretty worthwhile. He's very animated on the cam and very animated on the stream. I can imagine some of the words coming out of his mouth there. But yeah, this is what Seither's had a lot of success with in previous games and what have got him a lot of wins against Probe.
Well, these Phoenix coming on in, and they were really useful units in the early game, but yeah, I think losing the Phoenix control, so it was there he lost 2, then here he lost the rest of them. And that really was a huge problem, because those are so good at just picking up the siege tanks and disabling them in the fight. If you have like 6 Phoenix, probably just roll over it with Charge Lock Colossus A move, but he kind of just got his army, I guess, you know, divided and conquered. And it was so well done by Seither. I mean, when I saw him have the double drop in the top right unloaded, and then he just picked it up and moved it back down the middle, I was like, what is he doing? And then I was like, oh, it's that thing nobody thinks to do, which is when you've been spotted attacking the 2 extreme flanks, just grab your army, put it back together in the middle, and take advantage of the fact that the defender is still spread out. You know, he got rid of the Phoenix. There wasn't really any observers out on the map. He'd already scanned the one above his natural earlier, and in that style, you only have 1 or 2 observers on the map because the robo's so late coming down after Stargate. So really good play, honestly, and it's good to see. I'm happy because I feel like Seither was so close to winning game 1 and game 2, at least 1 point on the board, and it could be the beginning of a comeback.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He could certainly still take this. It is always a tough ask to do the reverse sweep in a best of 5, but you know, it wouldn't be the first time that Seither's really taken Probe for a ride on those 2 base builds and whatnot. So we'll have to see what happens in the 4th map. But folks, before we do that, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, map number 4. And we're back, and we're ready for map number 4 in just a moment between Probe and Seither. Probe still on match point after going up 2-0 in the series, but Seither taking a map there on the third one just to keep himself alive here in this playoff bracket. Want to stay in that winner's bracket so you don't have a more difficult time later on should you make it all the way back to that final match. But yeah, he's definitely keeping it interesting, Seither. He hasn't looked too bad in the first 2 maps either, but Probe just able to overcome him so far.
It's such a momentum game, isn't it, as well? I was starting to get to that point where I could imagine kind of as an observer, and I mean, even myself feeling like, oh, you know, Probe's just starting to control everything by the end of game 2, and you start to get that invulnerable feeling, and the players feel it as well. You know, there's this thing where when things start to go right, you secure more resources, you do more damage, your opponent maybe loses a bit of confidence, things can spiral very quickly. So I'm always excited when at that point where you're watching and it feels like, oh, this is getting more one-sided as it goes on, and then the other guy turns it around and gets a point on the board in a really cool fashion as well. So let's see if he can continue and get back on track and secure the 3-1 or not. Down here in the bottom left, representing Legacy, it's Probe.
And starting to battle it back from a 0-2 deficit, this is Seither. Representative of Mind Freak and the Terran Hope for many Terran fans.
You know what's really funny? This was, at least according to our graphic, Probe picked this map, which I was kind of surprised by. I was like, oh, this is normally the Terran players love Oxide. So many choke points. There's all these rocks you can set up tanks behind and so on. So, and that's usually pretty correct. Our guys here are really good at that. So, you know, I'm like, wait, what? Why'd you pick this map? What do you feel so confident about here, Probe? You know, why do you like Oxide so much? So, I've got my eyes on what strategy he brings out. I don't. Yeah, we don't really see anything too wild from him. Seither's definitely the one who I think has been mixing in more kind of, you know, aggressive plays. I don't really... When was the last time Probe kind of just did a crazy cheese versus Seither? Nothing actually pops to mind. It could just be my terrible memory, though.
I mean, you and me both, but that's just not really what Probe is about. He's always been the guy that lets you come to him. He wants 3 bases. He wants to macro up, and that's usually how he wins the game. Sometimes it can be to his detriment, I think, because there's if you compare him to someone like Pez from our region, Pez is a lot more aggressive. He's in your face, he's attacking at times when Probe would still be sitting back, just hanging out at his third base and trying to deflect the odd harassment from the Terran. So yeah, I really can't think of when the last time I saw him, you know, straight up do like a 2 base or a cheese or something. Like we have seen him do like the blink build in the past, of course, but he's much more inclined to do aggressive strategies against Zerg, I feel. Yeah,
I got to agree with that. It feels like, you know, Pez is constantly looking for how can I kill my opponent, you know, studying them and in the game as well. And Probe's like, how can I just not die and get an extra 1 Probe advantage, or, you know, like just I just want to get to the next stage of the game. That's it. Just like get to the next stage, survive, maybe get a slight lead here or there. But he very rarely looks to do like the brutal killing timing attack, you know. A lot of players, if they see a 3 racks, they like to go 4-gate blink and then try to really smash those bio units on the map and counter attack and pick them apart with blink stalkers. Probe was like, no, I'm just going to chill, you know, defensively. Even in the game 2, where he was blink stalkers against it was a 3-gate blink. He just said, yeah, let's just tack up on 2 bases, delay my third, take it a bit later. And as you said, different approaches, different flavors for everyone. Now, Seither here is going to poke with the 2 Hellions, but the shield battery's up, so I don't think that's going to be very successful.
And the force field there shuts the option of going to the main right down. There's a medevac following up with this, a couple of mines, and again with the armory coming out here. So, I mean, we already saw once Seither being quite effective in the early game with the mine harassment. So, yeah, maybe we'll see if Probe can improve his response this time, but it is very difficult to deal with.
well, this is the thing, you know, everyone complains about. It says Void Rays in 4v4 and Widow Mines are unfair. These are the things that, you know, doesn't matter if you're in bronze or you're in GM or you're a pro gamer. It's anywhere in between. You can struggle with Widow Mine drops.
Yeah, you just don't have that much available to you that can actually get rid of them before they all burrow, especially when there's 4 too. Maybe they get split up. Maybe you don't see them right away and you lose those precious couple of seconds. But look at this probe in position from the get-go. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, losing 2 Stalkers is not amazing, but it's actually acceptable losses. It really is. Of course, 9 Stalker shots, I believe it is, to destroy a medevac. He had 5 Stalkers underneath it. Seither needed to turn that medevac around immediately, but it felt like he kind of sent it in, maybe on the minimap, and wasn't quite looking at it and was already too deep and kind of kept going. Or maybe he just saw the first few Stalkers and was like, oh yeah, it's 2 or 3, we can keep going. Oh, it's 5, and it was too late by that point. So that's a great start for Probe here, who is now just going to be able to move out, take a third base, have absolute blink control on the map, and it looks like he might actually get quite aggressive with the counterattack this time around.
Yeah, here we are seeing that Probe doesn't tend to be the aggressor very often, and he's sent that Warp Prism straight out. Stalker's rallying behind that, and he's got the Observer in position here on that ledge, of course. He knows where the tank is, and there's plenty of room for him to actually maneuver here where that tank can't reach, and he's only got the one. The second one is only now about halfway done, so he's going to pick off whatever he can, maybe get the other tank. Oh, beautifully done from Probe.
Oh, that might just be it. The Cyclone's already really weak. The Marines haven't done much at all. Tank is about to come out. Raven can drop an auto turret, but does not want to lose that Raven. SCV is being forcible, and he accidentally pulls the SCVs from both bases using control click. Accidentally pulls his natural mineral line as well, which means Seither's income definitely down in the dumps. He's got to get some repair, maybe a bunker on the high ground. I'm not quite sure, because that is a ton of Stalkers for Probe, and Probe, a more conservative player, he wants to regenerate the shields on the Stalkers before he goes again. But I still think that's going to be a kill move, because the factory did not get another tank. It's built a tech lab. He's only now about to start another siege tank, and the Stalkers are already back in here.
Yeah, Probe doing fantastic damage here, getting worker kills, picking off key units as well. The tank unsieges, he sees it and immediately blinks on top of it. And the Cyclone goes down as well. Raven was next, but Probe giving himself a round of applause for a very clean win and taking the 3